Hey, 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 Facebook Live people. I'm here, I'm with you. We're going to get it started in just a minute. Just give me a little time. I got you. That's what I'm going to share, of course, Facebook Live feed on my feed. So we can be with it. All right, wait a minute, because I'm live. Where am I here? All right, is that me? No. How old are you, man? 58. 58. All right. All right, it's almost time to get started with open eye. I know y'all ready for it. Are you talking to them? Yeah, I'm talking to them. That's why. That's why I'm talking to them. I like that relaxed, kind of personal way you talk to people, like you're right in front of them, and they in front of you. We all family. Hey, listen, and we need to treat each other like that. As family. That's right. I don't mean that family that's fighting one another. That family. That family where there's love for each other. That's that love we need. Bonnie talked about that on her show, and I'm sure hoping that we can revive it either with her or another host. Real love. But we need some real love, Pat, don't we? Oh man, do we ever? That's where we start shooting at each other. Oh my God, yes. And understand that nuances of power, the power of unity. Yes. You can understand that you be doing something. Man, if we could get that through our heads, just that one concept. Oh, what couldn't we do? We'd be something else. That's where. Okay, I'm ready to open up, y'all. Wait a minute, I just gotta find where is it? I don't want to come up here. Facebook Live. Okay, let's try this. All right, here we go. Should be right in here. There I am. All right. Writing down on that. All right. Plug up my phone so y'all can call me. All right, I'm ready to get the show started, y'all. Here we go. Oh, suck it, there it is again. That's all right. Don't worry, we got it. Don't worry about it there. Open up, baby. I know. You don't use a regular theme song, is it? Yeah, I do. That's what I'm trying to pull up now. Oh, yeah. Do you have it on the CD? No, I got it on flash drive. Yeah. Okay, you don't want to open up. Okay, I got something for you. I know how to deal with it. All right. Open up. Okay, there you go. There it is. Oh yeah. Okay, of course. When I saw you looking there, I thought you were looking for something from our playlist. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's in my folder. Right. On the flash. I got you. Right. Right. Love you, man. I love you too. All right, man. All right, man. Glad you're on our team. Thank you. All right, man. Those of us that know it, we're connected.
intellectual knowledge and himself the pleasure of male masturbation easily. We do so because changing the professional his mind is deep and difficult to Good morning, my children of the sun. Welcome to the Open Eye. I'm your host and third eye optometrist, Mr. Patrice Gibbs, and we get ready to get it started. Like I always tell you, hey, don't be shy. Don't be shy. Let everybody know that the Open Eye optometrist is on the air, and I got something that's going to open your eye. Yes, and we are on Facebook Live, and yes, in the event that I feel silly, I will take your call. Because sometimes people call in, don't know what to say, and don't say nothing good, but that's all right. I'm going to give you a break. You call in, and I'm going to help you along. That's right. Don't be afraid. Don't just come correct. That's all I ask you. Right here on WHGE 95.3 FM. You know, the reason that we do what we do on the Open Eye, because we feel that the act of spreading knowledge is one of the highest expressions of unconditional love that one can ever give. And we try to spread knowledge here. As a rule, of course, I am joined by my brother in consciousness, Mr. Nosaroma. He got stuck in traffic. Hopefully he will make it, because he always got some strong information for you. So, and of course, in a few, I will be joined by the beautiful Miss Lorrine Vlard, who does the organic path with Lorrine. And as I always tell you, you don't have to wait until Saturday at 11 a.m. to tune in to WHGE 95.3 FM. We have a full schedule of programming for you all week. And Saturday is really our busiest day. For instance, today at from 1 to 2, will be Voices of the Delaware African Coalition. You don't want to miss that. You do not want to miss that. Later on in the day, at 4, from 4 to 5, will be Ed Johnson's Sports Zone. Whatever you want to know about sports, don't worry, Ed got you. All right. That will be followed by the Week in Review with host Alan Lawrence. Mr. Lawrence, no, let me tell you something about Alan. If you want to know what's happened in the city, what's going on in the city politically, socially, tune in to the Week in Review with Alan Lawrence. You don't want to miss that. And of course, following Mr. Lawrence is our illustrious leader, Mr. Harmon Carey, who daily does Black History Facts and Reflections, something that you don't want to miss. I think he has the only show in the area, maybe throughout the country, that covers daily Black History Facts. And of course, he gives you his reflections on that. You're right here on the Open Eye. And as always, I want to remind our Facebook Live listeners that you are part of the show. Don't be afraid. Oh, and for those on Facebook Live that can see us, we were just joined by the beautiful Miss Vlard. All right.
Hi, everyone.
This is the Open Eye.
Oh, I know they're all sitting and waiting.
Yeah.
When you turned on.
Yeah. Alan Ross is Jr. Mike Jackson is joining us. Welcome, Mike.
Wow. Is that a new person or one that was last week?
I think that's a new person. I think it might be a new
Drink up, everyone. Water. Water.
The Open Eye on WHGE 95.3. The framers of the U.S. Constitution, they may have missed the boat. One of the framers, he stated that he thinks they should include something in the Constitution just in case the people elect a damn moron. Well, they did, and oh my God, look what we got. Let me give the Orange disaster a little history lesson. Now, Trump says he has the absolute right to pardon himself. Are you kidding me? Let me tell you something. The last English monarch who tried to govern absolutely was King Charles I. He believed in his divine right to rule, dissolving Parliament when it suited him. He was put on trial for treason in 1649 and refused to enter the plea. He was found guilty and executed, enshrining forever the principle that no one, not even a king, is above the law.
I think we all have to answer to someone.
No, we're not.
That's right. I had to say something on that. We all have to answer to someone,
Yes,
no
indeed.
matter what position we hold.
Mhm.
That has nothing to do with it. We all are accountable to someone.
Got that right.
So that settles that.
Mhm.
What? Mr. Michael Jackson beat Miss Sherry?
Yeah, it looks that way.
What?
Yeah.
Where's Mike coming out
Vaughn's
of?
there. I don't
Hey,
know.
Vaughn.
Yeah, I don't know where Sherry is, but Mike's there. Vaughn's there. What's up?
Maybe she's on vacation.
Yeah, well,
She deserves a vacation.
yeah, nah, man.
We'll give that to her.
Yeah. Yeah, so, okay.
Have to remember to turn this down. Just in case we get our wonderful participants. Now, you know I feel lost without my highlight, right?
No.
What I think is of importance is almost this whole page would have been highlighted.
95.3 FM, the Open Eye. I got here something from our illustrious leader. He asked us to announce Charles Potter Jr. is with Josie Roy and 2 others, and wants you to join the Channel 28 producers at their rally this Saturday, 18th and Baynard Boulevard Park at the Sugar Bowl. There'll be many speakers, music, fun, bring your yard chairs and protest signs, issues, Channel 28, taking the Rodney Square bus hub and our parks, code enforcement, people's homes being taken away, and more. You don't want to miss this rally. You don't want to miss this rally. And
Taken away from what?
well, you
What
know,
reason? I mean, how do you just,
hey,
because they want to build?
well, you know, the plan to move the buses from Rodney Square, the main hub from Rodney Square, actually was planned years ago.
Oh.
Okay, the people weren't really cognizant of the plan. And so when the plan was implemented, people were, you know, understandably quite upset. But the push to make the plan happen, of course, came from, you know, the corporations in Delaware who didn't like the ideal of seeing what they considered low-class people in Rodney Square. Was the vice president, Kenmore, stated that he didn't like seeing these retroverts in his front yard. Well, Rodney Square, sir, is not your front yard. Rodney Square is a public park that belongs to the people. You know, and see, this brings me around to something I wanna mention, and that is power. Okay, and what we don't understand about power, you know, got people running around hollering black power all the time. This, that, they have no idea what power is. Now, information is power. Okay, that's one form of power. Knowledge plus action can be powerful. What is that power? First of all, you have to understand the objective of power. Okay, the objective of power is to take, transfer, maintain, wield, and expand power. When I say wield, that means have and be able to use power and influence. Okay, and the reason I say take, because power concedes nothing. Okay, power concedes nothing voluntarily. All right, let me tell you something. Now, when this thing happened with the bus hubs. You know, people got out and they protested and what have you. And, you know, they're going to meet with, you know, the city government and, you know, the leaders and the powers that be to negotiate bringing back. Well, let me tell you something. If you're negotiating, you do not have power. You do not have power, because power, let me define power for you. Power is the ability to bring about your aspirations to reality, regardless of excuse me, y'all, I got a little excited. Regardless of any opposing force trying to stop you. That is power. Okay, yo, I'm sorry, but if you're negotiating, if you're marching, if you're out here, you know, look at the police shootings. Okay, what do? March, pray, protest. That's not power. That's not power. Obviously not, because it keeps happening. It keeps happening. So if it keeps happening, you're not exercising any power. You don't understand the nuances of power. Let me give you that definition of what power is again. It is the ability to bring about your aspirations to reality, regardless of any opposing force trying to stop. Okay, our aspirations are to stop people from killing us. And the only way that we're going to exercise power, see, the powers that be in this country only understand two things: blood and money. We cannot afford to spill any more blood. We have power in our money. We have the power to affect the economy. But instead of doing that, what do? We run out with our cell phones and, you know, record the latest police brutality and then whine about, you know, how they're treating us. That's not exercising power. That's exercising the mentality of a victim.
So I just want to comment on about moving the bus hub.
Mm-hmm.
So that will affect a lot of people,
Oh,
because there's a lot of people that work in the downtown area of
right.
all ethnicities and
Mm-hmm.
races,
right.
that they literally catch the bus from
Mm-hmm.
wherever they live.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully this thing is well thought out.
Yeah.
It's going to affect a lot of people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If you look all around, there are people that work at the banks,
Mm-hmm.
at, you know, the local facilities, Kimura's, all kind of buildings.
That's right.
Federal buildings, government buildings, and people catch the bus from all different cities.
That's right.
And we can name some near and far.
Of course, of course.
It's going to affect a lot of people.
Right. Now, those that, you know, oppose this change in, you know, the bus hub, you know, they were able to convince, you know, the city government or whatever to move some of the buses back to Rodney Square. Okay, but not enough, because, you know, not only, you know, you talked about the working people, you know, that catch the bus.
Well, yeah, that's why I know this includes everybody, because I'm thinking about everybody.
Of course.
Not just the ones that work around the buildings,
Mm-hmm.
The city government buildings.
Right.
I'm talking about a group of people of all walks and race.
Mm-hmm.
That works,
Mm-hmm.
because I have friends.
Yeah.
Or
And
people
it's
that I
also
know.
a transfer point.
Exactly.
For other, you know, you might come from the Claymont area or North Wilmington and work in Newark. So you got to catch two buses, okay? And this was what really part of the main confusion when this took place, was where do you transfer at?
Right. Where do you park? And then where do you park?
Mm-hmm.
And then transfer into the city.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you leave from work,
mm-hmm. Where do you catch the outgoing
walk
bus?
maybe 8 blocks
Yeah.
or more,
Yeah.
if they move
Mm-hmm.
the main hub.
Yeah, and that's what they've done.
So,
you know, and I know I've seen now one of the groups of people that come in town, that have to come in town, are the elderly. Okay, they come in town to get their prescriptions filled, or, you know, maybe make a trip to their next bus or whatever. You know, now they were used to going to Rodney Square, and, you know, the main drugstore downtown, of course, is Walgreens. I actually well, it is one of two drugstores
Right.
downtown, but it's the
Right.
main one, the one that most people frequent, you know. And what happens is, has happened is that the elderly people have had to catch buses down the hill, down on French Street, or get off the bus down on French Street and walk up that long hill. Well, if you're, you know, 75, 80 years old and you're on a walker or a cane and you got to walk up that hill to Rodney Square, you know, that's real tough business. And then, of course, with the changes and not, you know, a lot of people not being aware of the changes, people didn't know where to catch the bus. You know, I have an elderly aunt who's partially blind, you know, so she has a pattern that she has developed so that she knows where she's at and able to, you know, move about without a whole lot of problem. Well, that change really affected her.
It sounds like lost profit to me.
Yeah. Yeah,
for
yeah.
transportation.
Yeah, that's what it should be, you know,
And
because, yeah.
And more.
Yeah.
Hope this is well thought out.
Yeah, well, I'm telling you, a lot of these people have not thought this out. They have not thought this out. We have to understand how to exercise power. This is the open eye. On the way my phone was beeping here.
It was going off.
Yeah.
You got people, they want to try it.
I'm not sure who this is. Direct action. I'm not sure who this is. They sent me a couple of text messages, but they said, you know, direct action, targeted action. That's, you know, that is exercising power. See if some of our, okay, we've been enjoying. Hi, Paulette Foster. Glad to have you on the open eye. Yeah. Glad to have you. That's her. The more the merrier. And I don't have to give up my phone number either, but I will. Okay.
You have a book for us today.
Yeah, you know me. I always got my notes. You know,
look, everyone.
This my ammunition. It's my ammunition. This is how I exercise my power, my voice. I want to know what I'm talking about. I'll give it to you. All right. I just got a text message. Hey, this is the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3. Hey, I want to tell you, give y'all.
Going off.
Yeah, I want to give our listeners, our regular listeners, an apology for a little bit of dead air this morning before I came on. We had a little technical difficulty, but we're here live right now, and we are handling business. Okay, I want to thank my old friend Tony Watson for sending me a text message. Thank you, Tony. I hope I am doing a good job. Continue listening. Okay, what's going on in Delaware? I'm sure this afternoon on the Weekend Review, our host Alan Lawrence will have something to say about the legislation legalizing recreational pot clearing, the House Committee. Ms. Vlard, are you rolling your eyes over there?
Not rolling my eyes. We already talked about this legislation.
Yeah, off the air. And you know, look.
And I just did opioids and opium poppy plant. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, you know, opioid is a Class A drug, marijuana, even though it is listed as such. I don't think it really should be. It doesn't affect people in the way that opioids do. As a matter of fact, it has helped many people get off of opioids. The hemp plant, the marijuana plant, I think is very beneficial. And of course, here in Delaware, we already have medical marijuana is already legal. Recreational marijuana is slated to be legalized here in Delaware. It's already been, marijuana has already been decriminalized here in Delaware. So, you know, not likely you'll get arrested for having marijuana. Now, the thing is, of course, with marijuana being legalized, of course, there will be legal dispensaries. There will be people going into marijuana businesses. It will be very profitable.
Very profitable.
Yes, indeed.
Someone sees dollars.
Of course, of course. But my thing is, before it was legalized, you had many people that were selling it illegally. And to this day, a lot of them are sitting in jail. Now, I know other places where marijuana has been legalized for recreational purposes. Those that were in jail were released, their records were expunged. And I think that's only fair, especially since, you know, those who had previously opposed the use of marijuana are now slated to profit from the sales of marijuana. Okay, and you know, it's something how this happens. It makes me think of the old street lottery known as the numbers game. Okay, which of course was illegal. You could get arrested for, you know, operating a numbers operation and what have you. And then the states saw the profit in it and how much they could make off of this. And so what they did was they implemented state lotteries, which were based on the old street game. And they made a lot of money from it. And of course, those that were, you know, involved in the illegal street lottery were pushed out of business, of course, by the state. And of course, many of them did not qualify to participate in the legal street number. And that's what's going to happen now with marijuana. A lot of the people that, you know, were involved in the illegal trade are not going to be able to participate and profit from legally, you know, legal recreational marijuana.
Because that right was abused, right? Not selling it in the right way.
Well, not selling it, of course.
Their own concoctions, right?
Yeah, there were some that added, you know, that laced the marijuana and what have you. But that really was actually in the minority, you know. And of course, you had to be careful. Of course, we're dealing with any thing that you're going to intake off the street. That, I mean, we can go all the way back to, you know, when Prohibition, when liquor and beer was illegal, you know. And actually, it was really an ugly thing that happened during Prohibition, was that the government actually produced and put out wood alcohol, which caused people to go blind and kill people and what have you. And they were thinking that this would, you know, stop the sales of illegal liquor, which of course it didn't, you know. But fast forward now, of course, yeah, you had those that want to increase the potency of the marijuana on the street, so they will lace it with rat poison, fentanyl, and what have you, which I think is really a good thing that recreational marijuana, you know, is being legalized, because it takes criminality out of it. You know, you'll have places to obtain marijuana that you'll be able to trust. So I think that makes really a big difference. Not only that, but the effect on the economy. You look at places like Colorado, which was the first state to legalize marijuana recreationally, and it really was a boost to their economy, where they were able to cut taxes, cut property taxes, cut school taxes, you know, tax refunds went up in Colorado. They were able to do things from the taxes on marijuana to even help the elderly, to offset homelessness. So, you know, this legalizing marijuana can actually be a really good thing. You know, in spite of, you know, some people get this feeling that, oh, you're gonna smoke marijuana, you're gonna be loopy, and, you know, I understand that, you know, but that's with any, I mean, look, liquor, alcohol is legal, and being one, you know, I don't drink, and as a matter of fact, I don't even like being around people when they're drunk, you know. I think that drinking is a lot worse than smoking marijuana. I do, yeah. All right, and some of you may not agree, but if you haven't been there, this is the open eye. Okay.
Lips are sealed.
Okay.
Because I'll be like, don't use it, don't smoke it, don't be a pothead. That's why I'm keeping my mouth closed. I'll be like, don't be a pothead. It's taking you 5 minutes to get across the street. Now it's going to take 10 minutes to get across a one-way street. That's a side joke between Pat and I. You know what that means.
Yeah,
10 minutes to get across a one-way street.
We saw this cat, and it took him 10 minutes to get across the street.
10 minutes to answer a yes or no
Yeah,
question.
yeah. I remember that dude. That's right.
And he didn't even know I was coming behind him.
Were you in your car?
Yes, he didn't hear it.
Well,
What do you have to say? He didn't even hear the call.
It was on something else.
And it was in the morning. He was,
Oh, he was puffing.
it was this, that stick was this short.
Right. And he had already smoked it at that point.
That's why Lorraine is, because if I go in with that, it's going to be probably about 8 segments.
Okay.
And it's going to have to be when at least one of you absent. You are no Simone. I can't have both of you in my ear talking about your blunt and your pipe. It's worse than a hookah.
That's you about ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me do this. Now, of course, if you're on Facebook Live, you're more privy to that. Yeah, Vaughn
is laughing.
Yeah, Vaughn.
Back me up, please.
You asking about somebody. Vaughn is a marijuana advocate. Right on, Vaughn.
Okay,
right
I need another. Billy?
Billy?
Pee-wee, where are you?
You calling out my boys.
I need my help on here, Debbie. Somebody help me, Dave. Somebody. Surely I'm not alone in this thing. I might have to bring somebody in.
You can do that.
Yeah, I might have to bring somebody in. We'll be on this side, though. They ain't like you no smoke will be in this side. We got a shout out to the non-smokers.
WHGE 95.3 FM. Open Eye listeners know that song is Early Summer, and you know what that means. It's time to go down the organic path with Lorraine. Good morning, Lorraine.
Good morning, Pat.
All right.
All right, we're going to change a little bit from the legalized pot. So we're just going to change the subject a little bit.
Okay.
Pat and I have wonderfully different feelings on this legalized pot. But anyway, I'm going to stay on my subject.
Okay.
Something that's going to help us all.
All right.
Today, we're talking about heat stroke.
Okay.
I mentioned that last week. And so I want to jump right into it because I want to just share causes, symptoms, signs, and prevention.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
So heat stroke, what is a heat stroke? Or sunstroke? Okay, so it is a condition caused by your body overheating, usually as a result of prolonged exposure to or physical exertion in high temperatures. This most serious form of heat can occur if your body temperature rises to 104 Fahrenheit. okay, which also is equivalent to 40 Celsius or higher. So remember that number, 104 Fahrenheit. That's very, very high.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are some of the symptoms? So we already talked about the body temperature being 104 Fahrenheit, 40 C or higher. Okay, so altered mental state or behavior that begins to change. So confusion, agitation, slurred speech. Because remember, stroke, slurred speech. Also irritability, delirium, even seizures, coma that can result from a heat stroke, a coma. So alteration in sweating, your skin will feel hot and dry to the touch, like clammy a little bit. Nausea, vomiting, may feel sick to your stomach. Flushed skin, your skin may turn red as your body temperature increases. So your skin will turn for some people. Rapid breathing, rapid heart rate, your pulse may significantly increase because heat stress places a tremendous burden on your heart to help your body cool down. So that's what's happening when you're really, really, really hot. So what are some of the causes though? So heat stroke can occur as a result of exposure to a hot environment called non-exertional classic heat stroke. Typically occurs after exposure to hot, humid weather. So that humid weather is brutal. It's so I grew up in South Florida. The weather is not humid, it's just hot. So when I moved, when I was stationed in Maryland, I started to tell you the whole place, Aberdeen Proving Ground, I have never experienced the humidity level. I was like, how do people live here? When I got off the plane, I was like, I could barely breathe. I had never been in humidity like that. I'm like, this is the Northeast. I could barely breathe. I'm like, this is, how do people function? How do they even walk? But I had to get used to it because physical part, running and different things in the morning, it was very real. So I adjusted very quickly.
You had no choice.
Well, Air Force was a little different. They don't really run.
No, we don't.
Only in the Army.
We're not sweating.
So just to remind you, the humid weather is brutal. So for prolonged periods, so strenuous activity, intense physical activity in hot weather, if you're not used to or accustomed to high temperatures. Okay, this condition can be brought on by wearing excessive clothing that prevents sweat from evaporating easily and cooling your body. So sometimes we have on too much and too many clothes. Okay, so drinking alcohol, I know some of us might not want to hear this, but sitting out at a bench, you know, in the sun, alcohol, in the humid weather, these two, they don't go together too well. So drinking alcohol, which can affect your body's ability to regulate your body temperature. So that's for those that question their drinking. You're not going to tell me when I could drink. Well, your body is affected, your body temperature. Okay. Becoming dehydrated, not drinking enough water. Just simply, unfortunately, I have to say this, but some of us don't drink water at all.
No, that's crazy.
I mean, I have to say it. It's true. We got to get some water in us. And maybe later we'll talk a little bit more about the true amount of water that's recommended, because some say make sure you get your 8 ounces, 8 glasses of water, but really scientifically, I do believe that determines your weight.
It depends on your
body. So we'll
weight.
talk about the water.
Okay.
For now, we're just saying, just please keep hydrated. Make sure you drink some water. Risk factors. What are risk factors that affects heat stroke? And I'm going to go over just about 2 or 3. So 1, your age. Okay, so your ability to cope with extreme heat depends on the strength of your central nervous system. So in the very young, their central nervous system is not fully developed. Okay, so the young and adults over 65. And the reason why their nervous system begins to deteriorate, which makes the body less able to cope with temperature changes. Okay, so it's the young and the old. The young because their central nervous system is not quite fully developed, and the 65, the more mature, is because their central nervous system over a period of time begins to deteriorate. Okay, so exertion in hot weather. Sports and athletic training, such as long distance running events, definitely, hopefully you would have been hydrated before the run and made that a lifestyle. Well hydrated, right? Because you know in the summer they have those events where you're running the 5K, different events, marathons, yes. So I just only use that as an example. There are other athletic sports such as football and whatever sport you like to play in the outside. Basketball, inside and out. That's what I say. Be well hydrated. Okay, so sudden exposure to hot weather. If you're exposed to a sudden increase in temperature, such as early summer heat wave, or travel to a hotter climate. So one year I went to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. The heat was very different, extremely hot. I think I came back 3 shades darker. And it took me 3 or 4 months to turn back to my regular shade. It was that hot in Mexico. Okay, so, and lack of air conditioning. Fans may make you feel better, but air conditioning is the most effective way to cool down or lower humidity. Now, I just want to give a shout out to developer and builders. I hope they're listening today. I just want to give a shout out to Dave and Roger and Miss Teresa, Miss Paula, and Dawn. I am blessed to live in a place where it's new, it's nice, it's newly renovated, and it's comfortable.
Specifically the Pearl Center.
Right, exactly. So the air conditioner, I just want to speak just a minute on that. Now, I understand that people are on a budget, and rightfully so. A lot of times you hear you're letting that air run all day and, you know, for a long period of time. If you have auto, it's more efficient to set the cycle on auto. Your bill will be better. It saves more energy. When you're cutting your air up and down, on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off, yes, that bill is going to be higher because now the generator has to kick in and work harder just to get to the level of comfortability that you want. So if you can afford it, just please, it is very, very important to run the AC. You don't have to run it 24/7. Put it on auto and set it. Okay, lower bill. Also, too, I wanted to sum it up. Sometimes, hopefully, we won't have to witness this, but if you witness someone having a heat stroke, as such as some of the symptoms that I just mentioned, being in the medical field for 16 years, what I was taught and learned that if you are actually assisting the individual, look at someone directly and tell them to call 911. Because what happens is when you get a group of people that are actually witnessing someone going through something, we have a tendency, just not on purpose, to actually just look. Well, we need someone to call 911, and we need someone to actually tend to the individual that's having possible heat stroke, pull them in shade, get some water, whatever means necessary to cool them off, fan them, water. So they recommend and here are the specific places that they recommend. By putting ice, fan, water, wet towels on the head, neck, and armpits.
And armpits.
Right,
Okay.
because that's an open pore.
Oh, okay.
Cool the person off, pull them out of the sun,
Mm-hmm.
seek shade.
Mm-hmm.
So to help them not, because sometimes some don't recover from a stroke.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we want to prevent.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much just going over the basics
Mm-hmm.
today. And one is more at risk. That was one thing that I did not mention, the last part. There are certain health conditions that is more at risk, and that is people with chronic illnesses such as heart or lung disease,
Mm-hmm.
and obese. That increases your chance of heat stroke, and if you had a history of heat stroke.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I wanted to share to prepare everyone for the summer.
All right.
And just keep those things in mind. Let's stay hydrated, okay?
All right. All right. And that is the Organic Path with Lorrine, which is brought to you by
Organic Supplements, LLC. Mywakaya, that's MYWAKAYA.com.
on WHGE 95.3, The Open Eye. Well, got 15 minutes left.
Wow, we got more time. Oh.
Yeah.
All right, everyone.
Morning, Morris. There's the.
Look, everyone, for summer, remember, I'm going to keep showing you this drink. It's a wonderful drink if you want to your digestive system good, lose some weight, and as my friend Pat says, I want to be slim and trim in the waist area.
Working on it, y'all.
This is very good. It has a really good flavor. It has cinnamon in it for natural sweetness, and I love it, and it does work. All right, check it out on Organic Supplements, LLC. .mywakaya.com.
All right. Make sure y'all check it out. Don't do this for
Thanks,
nothing, y'all.
Pat.
You're welcome. You're
You
welcome.
don't get this shape for nothing.
Y'all like
Grapes,
yeah,
fruits, fruit,
good for you.
fruits.
Good for you.
That's why I couldn't come with you. It's eating all kinds of fruits this morning.
WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. All right. Listen, this is something I've always found interesting, is that Black people, specifically Black women, seem to be the only people that are penalized and punished for the way that their hair naturally grows out of their head. Isn't that crazy? But you know, this is, of course, it's not new here in America. It happens anywhere where white supremacy or, you know, white society is the dominant people. Okay, and this dates back. Have you ever heard of the tie-on laws? This is the dreadful law that banned Black women from displaying their hair. Okay, Black women are often praised and revered for their hair, rightfully so. The texture of hair is suitable for forming unique styles, from afros to braids. Even mainstream media often imitates styles invented and catered to women with Afrocentric hair, without a mention, of course, of appreciation.
Or when traveling in the islands, as soon as you dock, get off the boat, the ship, who's waiting, who literally walks around and want their hair braided, maybe a portion. That's trying to change a culture.
Yeah, yes, called, culture vultures, appropriation. Nevertheless, there was a time when Black women weren't allowed to display their hair in public. Okay, let me tell you about the tie-on laws and how it was used to fuel racial tensions right here in the United States. A tie-on is a headdress used to conceal hair. It was adorned by free and slave Creole women of African ancestry in Rodriguez Middle. The regulation was meant as a means to regulate the style of dress and appearance for people of color. Black women's features often attracted white males, French and Spanish suitors, and their beauty was perceived as a threat to white women. The tie-on law was a tactic used to combat the men pursuing and engaging in affairs with Creole women. or black women. Simply put, black women competed too openly with white women by dressing elegantly and possessing noteworthy beauty. Yes, indeed. Nonetheless, black women did not despair. Instead, they abided by the rule and turned it into fashion. The women used unique colors, jewels, ribbons, and wrapping styles which accentuated their gorgeousness even more. Out of this bore the various head ties seen today on women of color using unique materials, patterns, and flair. Tie-ons have been worn by women in the Caribbean islands of Martinique, Guadeloupe, Dominica, which included hidden messages. They used madras, a popular fabric among slaves and free women, to achieve their head ties. Tie-on law eventually went out of effect in the 1800s, yet black women worldwide continue to use head wraps as wardrobe staples, paying homage to their culture, signifying their pride and looking stunning while doing so.
Well, I have to comment on this because Pat, he knows we already talked about this particular subject, and I must say this is true. And what happened was, okay, don't show your hair, so the women start wearing like these beautiful wraps, and then the queens that they are, because I'm, you know,
Yes,
a queen. Not saying that out of, you know, like what, not saying that in a negative way, but the wraps make the women look even more gorgeous and beautiful. So this is true, that history is sad, right? The shape, our shape, our hair. And by the way, I've been studying our hair. Women, ladies, we have gorgeous, gorgeous hair of all types.
That's right. All types and textures.
Without chemicals.
Yes, yes.
This is true.
You know, but I am a big proponent of wearing your hair naturally.
Yes, this is true.
Right here on the Open Eye.
Yeah, this is so true. Like the cotton. Did you ever get a chance to look at that video I sent you?
No, not yet.
The sister from Ghana.
Not yet.
Oh, hair is beautiful naturally. Because our hair turns into like cotton. Like I saw it like real curly cotton. Beautiful.
Heard that.
That's why I'm happy on my journey. My stuff already that is set.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna start it today. My regimen.
Are you?
Oh yeah.
I heard that.
Yep. Get it back down to my back where it used to.
Where it used to be.
Yeah. Without the chemicals.
This is the Open Eye. I would be remiss if I did not mention this. Recently on Netflix, there's aired a TV series called How They See Us, and what it addresses is the Central Park Five. And if you haven't heard about the Central Park Five, these were 5 young men who in the 80s were accused of raping a woman, a jogger. Okay, these young men, who it turned out were innocent, were basically railroaded. These young men, they were children at the time, they were teenagers. They were coerced into making a confession. They were tricked and coerced, and they received from 6 to 14 years for allegedly committing this crime, which they did not. At the time, well-known personality in New York was the Orange Disaster, Donald Trump, who took out $85,000 worth of ads in New York papers calling for these young men to be executed. Okay?
For something they didn't do.
For something they didn't do.
And executed.
And one of them be executed. Okay? And the crazy thing is, these young men were picked up pretty much at random by the police, and the prosecutors and the district attorney's office You know, they fixed up a case that railroaded these young men into prison, and even the press in New York, they did not even use the term before the trial even came about. They did not say these young men were the alleged perpetrators of this crime. These young men did it. They prosecuted them in the press long before they went to jail. Okay. Well, this series on Netflix really speaks volumes to, you know, it really tells the story of what happened. It's a 4-part series. I haven't seen it. You know, these things, it's difficult for me to watch. And I don't have Netflix anyway, at any rate. But this is, you know, really heart-wrenching story of what happened to these young men and how their lives were destroyed. However, karma is real. Okay, the primary prosecutor, Linda Farstein, after this Netflix series came out, of course, she had moved on from the prosecutor's office and actually went on to become a novelist, a well-known novelist, and had been afforded the opportunity to sit on many prestigious boards, college boards, corporate boards, and what have you. Now, this story and her involvement, her shenanigans, her treachery, if you will, against these young men in this Central Park 5 case is coming back to bite her. Her publisher has dropped her. She's had to resign from several of the boards. Now, there's been a settlement of $40 million that has been awarded to these young men, which is not enough. Their lives, their youth was stolen.
Reputation, their humiliation, a lot of that was property and casualty. It's you can't erase those things.
No, you can't. No, you can't.
I mean, yeah, we talk about expunged and something like that. You can't erase. You know, scarred my reputation and should be punished for fabricating and lies. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not right.
And you know, the thing is, with she should be made an example of, because prosecutors, unfortunately, are not interested in justice. They're only interested in winning. And if they can find someone to victimize, whether they committed the crime or not, even when these people are found innocent. For instance, the Orange disaster, he still maintains, in spite of all the evidence, in spite of them being awarded, you know, just $40 million or whatever, to split between them, until you get $40 million a piece. In spite of all this, the Orange disaster still declares that these young men, you know, are guilty, which of course they're not.
I mean, but with today, with scientifically, all the different tests they could run, things been sitting in files for years, and they bring them back out. They can do that.
Yes. Yeah.
To justify and bring, you know, vindication to these young men, right?
Yeah.
They can do that.
They can do that.
I would, you know, I don't want to say what I would, but that's something to be looked into. Like, you know, let's scientifically let's do these tests that they can really prove.
Right.
Yeah.
The DNA evidence, of course, supports their innocence. Not only that, but the actual perpetrator of the rape came forward and admitted that he was the one that did it. Now, here's the power.
They can test that and actually confirm.
Right.
So let's run the test.
Let's run the test, which they did, and it has been confirmed that he was the actual perpetrator.
And let that individual come forth and apologize. Openly.
Yeah. Now, the crazy thing is, and this is the power of the propaganda of the press, okay? This is what happens when you don't control the narrative. The victim is still convinced that these 5 young men were the ones that perpetrated this crime against her, in spite of all the evidence to the contrary. Yeah. No, it absolutely.
Just trying to scar, like,
you know,
these individuals.
Yeah, you know, and of course, the way it has affected them socially, mentally. You know, these are things they can't get back.
Right.
And their youth was stolen.
Yeah. Sad.
This is Open Eye, 95.3 FM. We got minutes left. Believe that.
Oh,
Yeah.
we've been talking about a lot of good stuff, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Mr. Lawrence, I see you in there. Yes, we always try to be informative here. That's all right. I'm gonna get ready to close out, y'all. All right. My last little comments. This is the open eye. Of course, there are obstacles that impede our progress, but as long as we approach these with a negative defeatist mindset, we will never advance. Speak it into existence. My family didn't have wealth, education, finance, or corporate legacy or connections. Therefore, my future is predetermined to be dismal. That's BS. We are prime examples of what determination, courage, and resilience can produce. There are many that will and have made great strides and will open doors and bring many with them. I reject the naysayers. You have those that claim Dr. King messed up a lot of people and set them up for failure and disappointment by telling Black people we can do anything. Guess what? We can. Mm-hmm. Neither the obstacles, lack of resources, nor access to the ball and all that comes with that has stopped us before. We must take hold and remember who we are, because even with substandard resources, we achieve. Too often we fight the wrong fight, make poor choices, and then we have people that say, oh, we can't. Count the times we have triumphed in the face of adversity. Miss us with the naysaying and negativity. If you're skinny, you're starving. If you're fat, you need to lose weight. If you leave your hair gray, you're getting old. If you color your hair, you're trying to act young. If you're dressed up, you're conceited. If you're dressed down, you let yourself go. If you speak your mind, you're rude. If you don't say anything, you have no backbone. If you cry, you're weak. If you're sociable, you run the streets too much. If you stay to yourself, you're standoffish, you're stuck up. If you have a nice life, you're a snob. If you're educated and successful, you're bourgeois. Look, you can't do anything without being criticized. Be you, because you're pretty good at it. And as I always say, destiny determines who enters your life, but you decide who stays. Therefore, value those who value you, and don't treat those as a priority to treat you as an option. I'm back to Gibbs.
Lorrine.
This is the Open Eye on 95.3 FM.
I thought was with you until you're red.
Yeah.
And I was thinking on what you were saying.
Mm-hmm. That's all good. All right, Facebook Live listeners.
Bye, friends.
Thanks for joining us.
Join us next week.
We will be here.
Thank you for your support.
All the time.